winter is coming. So let's make some snow. Hello, my name is Kaze and welcome to another Right Brain tutorial. So before moving on to the tutorial part of this video, I wanted to say thanks to everybody who has subscribed. We've hit another major milestone of over 2,000 subscribers. I am incredibly humbled and I don't know what to say. Honestly, this is awesome. Secondly, related to that, I wanted to say that I try my best to look at all the incoming messages and answer questions that I might have the answer to. I don't always do that. And unfortunately, I'm not always able to spend a huge amount of time, reading all of the different messages that pop up on the various videos. And because of that, sometimes I catch something and I'm able to respond, and sometimes I am not able to respond. So please bear with me, understand that I'm doing this completely on a voluntary basis. I'm not getting paid for this. I am not getting anything out of it. As a matter of fact, it is my intention to not monetize this channel because I don't believe that viewers should be penalized for learning. On that note, let's get on to the learning part. So I'm going to share with you guys a technique that I've been able to figure out to have some buildup of, in this case, snow on surfaces that are pointing upwards. So, wherever like snow would fall, like for instance, on the shoulders or the top of the head and so on and so forth, that's where you would have some snow buildup. Now, hold on, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, hey man, isn't there a side effects lab plugin that does exactly that? And you would be 100% right, but I wanted to do it in a procedural way that would be strictly material based, and I wanted to be able to do it in 3Delight. So let me show you what we're gonna be doing, and let me show you how I figure out a method of achieving this result. All right, so this is what we're going to be trying to achieve with 3Delight, and if you can see, I mean, this is kind of like a statue, and what I wanted to do is I wanted to have some kind of frost, kind of fresh snow, a little bit of sprinkling collecting on surfaces of my geometry, but obviously I didn't want to cover the entire surface with snow. I just wanted certain areas where snow is likely to collect, to actually kind of have snow. So I embarked on a journey to try to kind of figure out how to achieve this with 3Delight. And let's dive right into Houdini and find out a little bit what I did. So first things first, I'm using this freely available, I guess like photo scan of this statue, and my French pronunciation is horrible. I'm going to try my best to pronounce it in a non-insulting way to all of you French-speaking viewers. So I believe this is called Le Transit de René de Chalon. And what it is, it's a funerary statue that looks really, really cool in this tomb in France, I suppose. And somebody scanned it and posted a scan online. And you might have seen this in various different places. As a matter of fact, I've seen a lot of people, what they do is they take this, I guess it's a heart, that the statue or something, I think it's a heart, it's stylized, that the statue is holding, and I've seen people like replace this with a cell phone so that it looks like the skeleton is taking a selfie. But anyway, the reason why I picked this particular geometry, this particular object, is both because it looks cool, but also because it can showcase some of the limitations of this method, because I want you guys to be aware of basically what you can get away with and what you cannot get away with the method that I'm about to show you. I will say that this is not the cleanest geometry out there. As you will see a little bit later in this tutorial, this is going to create some issues with us, and that probably wouldn't be present with some topology that's a little bit cleaner. So anyway, I'm just running like a UV auto seam because the model didn't come with any UVs, so I just wanted to like kind of get a basic kind of UV map on it. And then after the UV auto seam, I did a UV flatten and then a UV layout to optimize the flattening a little bit better. And then I added some normals because it also didn't have any normals. And what I did before this video is I actually exported using this ROP FBX. I exported an FBX and I went into Substance Painter just to get like a basic kind of surface that looked kind of okay for what we need. But I'm going to show you right now what that actually looks like. Let's go into the 3Delight tab, and I'm just going to hit render, and here pops, I guess like the camera is kind of pointing a little bit in a different direction. As a matter of fact, here, let me hit the camera and maybe like kind of zoom out a little bit so that you can see, and I'm just going to set this to IPR. So basically you can kind of see a little bit what this texture is doing. I did that in Substance Painter, and what I did is here, let's get this guy out of the way. In the material context, I just created a basic 3Delight material where I have a base texture, a roughness, and a metallic map that are all being piped into our principled shader and then are going right into the terminal. So far so good, nothing new. If you watch my previous tutorial videos about creating UVs, or if you watch my introduction to 3Delight, then this is all stuff that you already know. Alright, so what I want to be doing next is, I was curious to kind of make it look like this statue maybe is like, outdoors, and it's snowing, there's some like light snow that's kind of raining on the statue. So what I want to be able to do is I want to be able to add some snow on the surfaces of the statue that are facing upward, okay? Because if the snow falls here on the front of the statue, it would probably just kind of keep falling down. However, if it falls on top of the head, or if it falls on the shoulders, or maybe right here where there's like the clavicles, is that what it is? Then it would start collecting in those areas very specifically. So the first thing that I did is I went and got myself like a snow texture. I'm just going to show you what that looks like. Here, I'm just going to switch this. You can see some of the problems with the geometry right now. And as I said, this is not like the best topology on this model. So yeah, on this closer angle, you can kind of see that there's, there's some height displacement being applied. There's a height map as part of this texture. So I'm going to go into my burnished metal. This is, remember, just my kind of base sort of texture for my statue. And what I want to do is I want to highlight the nodes that I'm going to need to preserve. And I'm just going to hit copy, Command C, or I guess like Control C for you Windows users. And now I'm going to go into the material context. I'm just going to go under 3Delight and just kind of set up a 3Delight material builder, which I will call Metal and Snow for right now. Okay, I'm going to dive right in there, and I'm going to paste the metal material, and I'm just going to connect it here to the surface. Oops, just one of them, just the principled. I'm just going to connect it to the surface, go back into my statue, make sure that we are on my metal and snow material, and I'm just going to hit render just to make sure that we do have indeed, we're back to our kind of base metal, like a little bit burnished, worn out metal. The problem here is that we need to figure out a way to isolate the areas that are facing upwards, and then we can use that as a mask to then bring in our second material, the snow material, with the displacement, on top of just these sections. So let me switch here to IPR mode so we can kind of see a little bit more interactively what is going on. Just gonna shrink this a little bit so you guys can also see the nodes. And let's go back into our base material. So let me do this. I'm going to create a new principled shader, and I'm just gonna pump it into the surface right here. So this is just gonna turn everything white because I don't have any texture applied to this whatsoever. Let's put this guy out of the way. I'm just gonna tuck it down here for now. This is just a way that we can kind of see a little bit what nodes might be able to give us what we're looking for, okay? Because once again, We want to be able to isolate surfaces that are facing a certain direction, in this particular case, the y-axis. So looking around 3Delight, you know, like I was kind of looking for a node that would be pretty straightforward to give me, you know, to be able for me to separate, you know, these various facing surfaces, like a face node or something like that. And I was looking at the utilities, and there's like attribute read, clamp, color blend, blah, 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 condition, facing ratio looks interesting, but it's not really what, it doesn't give us like the result that we want. As a matter of fact, here, I'll just show you real quick what the facing ratio does. It's basically a sort of Fresnel type of node where whatever's facing the camera, it's going to be a little bit darker, and then as we get closer to the edges, it's going to get lighter. As a matter of fact, here, let me adjust so you can kind of see a little bit what's going on. 0 doesn't do anything, but 0.1 gives us a better idea of what is actually happening with this particular node. This is neat. This is a new node. If you haven't updated 3Delight in a while, I would highly recommend that you update 3Delight, because the developers are cranking out new things. They're cranking out new updates almost like every other day, and they're adding more and more stuff. So let's keep digging, okay? So as I said, utilities, aside from facing ratio, float blend, float math, gamma correct, remap, which is really like a ramp node, set range. Those are not going to do the trick. I mean, I already tried them, and you know, this is not what we want. These are not the droids we're looking for. So then I started looking into patterns. We have like some 2D patterns, and then we have some 3D patterns. And one of the things that I was kind of curious about, because I want the pattern to be 3D aware, so I wanted to look specifically in the 3D section of these patterns. I was thinking, well, maybe a ramp. Okay, so what I did is I created a solid ramp right here, and you might notice that it comes in with this new node, which is a placement matrix. This is new. Once again, like if you've been using 3Delight from a few months ago, you might not see this. Let's plug this ramp from the color into our color, and let's take a look a little bit what this ramp is actually doing. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this from sphere to cube, okay? And let's crank out the contrast so you can kind of start seeing a little bit what is actually happening to our statue. It's actually starting to go from the bottom of our object to the top, and it's giving us this gradient, which is kind of cool. You could probably use this for some things. So for instance, if this was a mountain range, and we wanted maybe like a rocky terrain on the bottom of the mountain range, but then at the very top we wanted to be kind of covered in snow throughout, then this would do it, okay? This would be a good solution for that type of thing. But in our case, it doesn't work. And it doesn't work because, you know, we don't want just the head of the skeleton to be covered in snow. That doesn't really make sense, right? I mean, we want the snow, this kind of powdered snow, to affect all the surfaces that are pointing upward, you know, throughout, not just in a certain region. I mean, we have these noises. We have flakes, marble, rock. As I said, the solid ramp that doesn't really do the trick in this particular case. Wood, volume noise. We do have Tri-Planar. Now, Tri-Planar is typically used in conjunction with textures. So what we would do is, if we don't really want to worry too much about getting a clean UV map and then maybe going to Substance Painter and applying a texture, you know, that makes sense, then Tri-Planar saves a lot of time, because it allows us to literally just kind of add a texture. Then what the Tri-Planar is really doing, it's kind of ignoring my UV map on the model and just applying this texture from this direction, that direction, that direction, and then blending the various edges together. so that we can get something that looks seamless. And Tri-Planar works incredibly well on organic type of shapes. So if you have a rock, if you have, you know, like maybe even like some sort of vegetation, mossy kind of surface or something like that, you can use Tri-Planar to really great effect, and it's going to give you something that blends together and you don't really have to worry about UV maps at all. So the thing that really caught my attention was actually this outmask output. This is the first time that I was like, huh, what is this? So let's plug this guy into the color input and see what is going on with the outmask. This is really, really cool because what it's actually doing is exactly what we want it to do. So basically it's taking all of the surfaces that are facing, for instance, like the x-axis, and it's assigning them a red color. Okay, so everything that's, you know, that's facing, I guess like this way, it's actually that way for you guys, is getting tinted red. And then from the z-axis, I think it's the z-axis, it's using blue, and then on the y-axis is using green. Okay, this is really, really cool because this, I think it's going to do the trick for what we need to do. And as a matter of fact, there's even a blending tab here, and let me just kind of cut the softness to 0, because right now, remember, it's kind of blending between these different shades and trying to kind of create a smooth transition. But if I put this down to 0, then you'll see like a lot more starker contrast between the different colors. So you can kind of see very, very clearly which surfaces of this skeleton are facing which direction. Okay, so I think this is going to be the key for us to be able to apply snow just on the surfaces that are facing upward, okay? Like the top of the skull, the shoulders, the top of this scroll here, the top of the fingers, so on and so forth. So this is awesome. The problem, however, is that this is not a mask yet. This is like an RGB map. I don't want to use the R and the B portion of it. I just want to use the G portion of it, okay? So I need to be able to kind of separate these guys somewhat. And looking once again into the 3Delight, I'm going to go down to, let's see here, Utilities. And 3Delight actually gives us a really cool node to be able to do what we need to do, which is the color to float, which takes color information, which is what we have right now, and converts it into float values, which are typically grayscale values that typically go from 0 to 1. So let's instantiate this node and plug it somewhere in here, and we get something. So this is a good sign, what we're seeing right now. One of the problems right now is that it's given me all three of these colors. It's converted them to float, right? So they're no longer red, green, and blue. Now they're gray. But if you look very carefully, we can kind of still see that, you know, the top, the side, and the other side are still being represented, and we don't want that. So the reason why this is happening in this color to float node is because right now the mode is set to luminance. So it's taking the luminance value and it's kind of converting that into a float value. And this might work for some stuff, but not for what we need. We want to be able to isolate specifically which color we want to be outputted from this. So thankfully, the color to float node gives us different modes, and one of the different modes is the actual colors, red, green, and blue, right? So if I just hit red, now we're just gonna have the surfaces that are pointing red that are going to be a lighter color white, and then everything else is gonna be black, okay? Because we don't want those values to be outputted. So in this particular case, I don't want red, I don't want blue, but I do want green, okay? So even without doing anything else, we're already kind of starting to catch a hint of what our result is going to be. So a couple of things. Right now, going back to my Tri-Planar node, I don't have any blending. The softness is set to 0. If we bring it back to 0.5, you'll see that it blends with the sides a little bit better. This is cool, but maybe it's a little too much. I don't want this snow to, you know, to kind of be powdering more surfaces than it needs. So maybe 0.5 is a little too aggressive for what I need. Let's try 0.1. I'm gonna go down to 0.2 just because it still feels a little too soft. Okay, cool. Just gonna leave it there. Don't touch it, don't look at it. All right, so the problem now is that it feels a little too uniform, okay? And I want to have some irregularities to this snow falling because, I don't know, maybe it just kind of collects due to imperfections on the surface of the statue. It would kind of collect differently in different spots, right? And right now it's just a little too uniform for my taste. So let's see if we can break it up a little bit. Now the Tri-Planar node gives us some noise, which is kind of cool. So let's play with the noise. I'm just gonna start the noise intensity at 0.5 and maybe bring the noise scale. Right now it's like too large. Resize the model, it's pretty small. So maybe let's go 0.1. Let's go 0.01, 0.05. Let's go 0.01. Okay, now we're starting to see exactly what this noise is giving us. So it's kind of cool. It's definitely breaking up these surfaces so they feel a little bit more organic. However, the problem is that the way this noise scale and intensity are designed to work is if we were using textures and if we were not necessarily using this node the way we're using it. So because of that, you might start noticing that, let me see here. Maybe if I zoom out a little bit, I'm starting to see a little too much activity where maybe I wouldn't necessarily want it. I mean, this is not terrible, but maybe it's not giving me the result that I would really like to have. What else can we do that might allow us to break things up a little bit with our surface, but at the same time, you know, maybe be a little bit more controllable for us? So I'm just gonna switch this to 0 because I don't really want to use this at all. And what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna introduce a different type of noise. So let's see here. I'm gonna go into my 3Delight under Patterns 3D, and I'm going to choose, I don't know, let's do a Fractal Noise maybe. Let's try that. Once again, it comes with a placement matrix. And let's pump this into the color and see a little bit what it's doing. And right now the solid fractal, it's once again way too large for our model. So I want to be able to see a little bit better what the actual pattern of the noise is. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to change the frequency. So yeah, I think this is going to do the trick for what I need to do. So now I just need to figure out a way to blend this together with this, okay? And once again, 3Delight to the rescue. We have, under the utilities, we have a float blend. And since we're dealing with like two float values, this is going to do the trick for us quite wonderfully. As a matter of fact, out of the fractal, I'm going to come out, I'm just going to use like the red value, the R output. Keep in mind, floats are just grayscale values anyway, and in this particular case, I believe like RG or B would give us the same exact result. So I'm just going to pick R, I'm going to put it in the foreground, and then I'm going to pick the output from our color to float conversion node. I'm going to put it in the background, and I'm just going to go and plug this guy in here. And right now, once again, this is not what we want because this is, you know, putting this noise all over the place. What I want to do is I want to use a math operation to combine this mask that the Tri-Planar node is generating with the solid fractal noise so that we have some noise breakup just where the Tri-Planar is giving us a light value, and then we have no noise in the other sections where basically I don't want any breakup or any snow or anything of that sort. So the operation that we're going to use for this, it's going to be a multiply. So I'm just going to switch this from over to multiply. So you can kind of see what's happening, right? So it's taking our flat sort of mask that the Tri-Planar node is giving us, and it's adding a little bit more organic quality to it by breaking it up a little bit. We have our metal right here. This is our mask that we just created for where we want the snow to be. Now we need to bring in our snow texture. So I'm just going to go back into my material context to the snow, and I'm just going to copy these nodes. Command C, go into metal and snow, and let's, I don't know, put them somewhere in here. Okay, let's color them. Let's give them a color. So I'm gonna, I don't know, maybe do like a white for the snow. I'm gonna do a dark gray for the metal, and for our mask section, I don't know, let's just do a, since we use green, I'm just gonna do green. Okay, cool. What we want to be able to do is we want to be able to combine the metal texture, the snow texture, and we want to use our mask as a way to tell 3Delight where to put what. And the way that I'm going to do it is I'm going to go to 3Delight. Under the main setting, there is a really cool layered node. Okay, so I'm going to use the layered node. And let's zoom in a little bit so you guys can see what the layer node does. And basically it's a mix node, except for principled or other main materials. So not for textures, not for floats, but actually for for entire materials. So we have a color input for the top layer, we have a middle layer, we have a bottom layer, and then we have space, our float input for the masks. Cool. So first thing I want to do, I'm just going to plug the snow into this top layer. I'm going to plug this guy in here under the surface. So now if I bring my IPR back in, you'll see that our skeleton is now covered in snow once more. Not what we want, but this is a good sign that the layered material is working. So now we want to layer the metal. So I'm going to go down here to the metal. Here, let's bring this. It's always like a bit of an issue with Houdini as far as like kind of making sure that we have enough space that we can kind of see all of our different nodes. But I'm just going to go from the out color here, and I'm going to plug this into the middle layer right here. And if I bring back the IPR, you'll see that nothing is happening because right now this layered material node doesn't really know what to do. I mean, it's got like a mask that is set to 1. That means like that the top material is going to cover our entire object. So this is not good. But what we can do here is we can put our float to the mask input right here. Okay. And if we do that, now we're starting to see what we want to be seeing, which effectively is snow, the snow material that is just covering certain parts of our model and not everything. And in the other parts, we have this burnished metal. Go in here, maybe we can kind of zoom in a little bit more so I can kind of show you what is happening. Our displacement, which right now is only supposed to be on the snow parts, is being applied all over our model. Okay, and if you look very carefully, you'll see that we do have this displacement not just on the top parts where the snow is supposed to be, but also on say like the jaw, for instance, where we're not really supposed to have this displacement happening, like the sides of the skull. I mean, this is supposed to be smooth metal, if you remember from the original render, which I have right here. It's supposed to be smooth. It's not supposed to be all bumpy like this. So this is a bit of a incorrect functionality, maybe a little bug that hopefully will get sorted out at some point, where in 3Delight, the middle layer is kind of dictating the displacement for for all the other layers as well. And we don't want that. We want to be able to limit this displacement just where the snow is gonna go, okay? And we don't want this displacement anywhere else. The rest of the model is fine the way it is. So what we can do to facilitate this is, if we go under my displacement map right here, my displacement texture, is maybe we can use our mask for the snow to also be able to say, hey, only put the displacement in these areas and nowhere else. Okay, so how are we going to do that? Let's go back to our kind of test principled node just to see what the hell we're doing with this masking. So I'm just going to plug this back in, and I'm just going to hit refresh so that we can kind of see. So now we're kind of back to our mask that we built. We're not actually seeing textures right now, okay? So we want to be able to use this mask, and we want to be able to apply it to the displacement. So let's do another float blend node. So I'm just gonna, I could copy this, but I'm just gonna go in here, and under the utilities, I'm just gonna initiate another float blend node. I'm gonna plug it in here. And once again, we're going to plug our displacement in here. I know it says it's a color, but it doesn't really matter because displacement is traditionally also a float value. So I mean, I could just kind of do this. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply the other float blend output into the background. And let's plug this guy into the color so we can see a little bit what we're doing. And right now, it's not doing a whole lot because it's actually, the blend mode is set to over, which is not what we want. So let's try multiply, and multiply once again gives us a result that's very, very similar to what we were getting from our previous mask for the materials. I played around with different types of blending modes, and the one that I think actually kind of fits our needs a little bit better is this darken minimum, okay? That gives us something similar. I mean, if you look at multiply versus darken, the differences are pretty subtle, but darken actually gives us a little bit sharper contrast to what we need. So this is good. The other thing that I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to add a ramp node, or as 3Delight calls it, a remap node, to be able to fine-tune this even more. So let's do that. I'm just going to go under 3Delight, under utilities. I'm going to have a remap node, and as I said, other render engines tend to call this a ramp node, but in 3Delight it's called remap. After using it a while and after really wrapping my head around about what it's doing, I think remap is actually like a more proper term than ramp. But I just want to let you guys know that that in 3Delight it's a remap node. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to plug the output float into the input value, and then the output value into this background. And what that's going to do is it's going to allow me to maybe just kind of fine-tune these masks a little bit more. If I can kind of go, you'll see here what this is doing is basically, if I pump up like the darker areas, or more appropriately like the lower values, then we get more sparse of an effect, more sparse of a mask. And vice versa, if I pump this guy up a lot higher, now we are starting to almost get rid of that noise that we were using before. So I'm just going to leave it like this for now, because I fundamentally want to be able to control my displacement with it, but I don't know exactly where I need to put this settings. Sorry if this is starting to get a little convoluted, but I assure you, once you kind of wrap your head around it, it's pretty straightforward and simple. So now I'm going to plug my color back into the surface from the layered material node, and let's just kind of hit refresh here. Okay, so this is the render that we got, and now we're like into crazy land. This is looking more like some I don't know, modern art sculpture. And the displacement is just like, the value is just way too high now. And the reason why we're getting this result is actually because of the math operation that we're doing on this float blend along with the mask that is kind of throwing our basic displacement map out of whack. So we just need to go into my snow and just decrease the intensity. Let's say, let's try 0.005. We'll go by a factor of 10, and let's see what that gives us. Okay, so this feels considerably more natural, and this is really the result that we're going after. We still have some tweaking that we can do. Let's go a little bit closer to our model just so we can see the surface a little bit better. And this is where this ramp is going to come in handy, because now we can really fine-tune how we want the snow to be applied. So, if we want a little bit less of it, we can just kind of tune this guy down so that now we have a lot less snow. It's a little bit more sparse, and or vice versa, or we can kind of go a little harsher on the higher values and give us a little bit more of a definite kind of thicker snow sort of effects onto our model. However, there are a couple of catches, and one of the catches I can fix, and the other catch I cannot fix. So I'm gonna show you the fixable one first. So what I'm gonna do here is let's zoom out a little bit so we can see our statue in full, okay? And so it looks cool, right? Like, I mean, we got like our snow fall, like, on the surfaces are pointed upwards, and it's really cool, and it looks fairly natural, and we still have our burnished metal base coat on the rest of the statue, and everyone's happy. The problem is, let's go back into the OBJ context here. The problem is that if I rotate this object, our snow is not on the top of the skull anymore, it's now on the top of the statue. Because right now, if you're animating this and you happen to kind of move this object, maybe kind of it undulates, then you're going to have this weird effect where the snow is kind of shifting above, and always kind of pointing upwards. So we can fix this by, let's go back into our material context. I'm going to go in my Tri-Planar node, okay? And what I'm going to do is use a transformation. Instead of world, I'm going to say object. Okay? So, now that we are in object mode, so our triplanar map is actually being applied not according to the world coordinates, but according to the object coordinates. Okay? And the object coordinates, y is pointing up, okay? And then you got like z and x, right? However, the cool thing is that now, if we go back to our object, and now we rotate it again. Okay, so you can see it better from this angle. So our object is literally like kind of laying flat on the floor, but the snow is still on the top surface of the skull and the shoulders and so on and so forth, and it's staying put. And even though it doesn't make as much sense with snow or with dust or something like that, it might make more sense if you're using this technique, say because maybe you want to have some paint that's peeled off on the top of an object, or maybe even some grime that's like really caked in that's not going to be falling off if if your object kind of turns. So now you can kind of animate things, and this displacement and the texture is going to stay put in place, which is going to be really, really cool. All right, let's go back to our upright model, and I'm going to show you the other issue that this technique has. And this is very specifically why I wanted to use this model, because I knew that if I used, say, like a cube, you might not be able to really see this little boogaboo that you just need to be aware of. So if you look carefully under the arm, we actually have snow, right? And this is incorrect as far as the snow is concerned, but it's correct as far as the mask is concerned. Because the Tri-Planar node is giving us a mask in the y-axis, but it's given it to us for both the surfaces that are pointing upwards, so they're like positive y, but it's also given it to us for the negative y-axis as well. So just as much as it's going to put this mask values on the surface pointing up, it's going to do the same with the surfaces that are pointing down. And in this particular case, this is not really a desirable effect, and I don't really have a solution for this other issue. I just wanted to bring it up to you guys just so that you're aware of it, because it's good to know that this is some of the limitation of this particular method. Now hopefully some of you guys might chime into the comments below, and maybe you have a solution to this, and if so, please let me know, because I'm always looking to learn new things, and if there's some fixes, some way to fix this this thing so that I can have my mask only on the positive y and not on the negative y, then I would love to know how to fix it. Otherwise, I'm hoping that some of the guys at 3Delight are watching this tutorial, and maybe they can make some changes to the Tri-Planar node to allow me to define which axis I want this masks to actually appear on. You can also see like here on the bottom of the jaw and even like the top of the eye sockets. Yeah, you get the idea. All right, so last but not least, I just wanted to show you guys that this is not just for snow. You can use it for dust. You can use it for basically anything that you want. As a matter of fact, I even made a different material that I've already configured using the same technique, which is a moss type of surface. So, you can kind of do this kind of effect with it. I'm just gonna make it a little bit larger. So yeah, I mean, like, the possibilities are infinite, and as I say, you get to still use a very procedural workflow on the model, and I don't know, I think it can definitely help to achieve certain types of effects for certain types of objects. As I said, if you understand the limitations of it, then you can kind of work around it, or just kind of position your camera in a place that you're not going to reveal all the little boogaboos. All right, as always, we've gone long enough, but hopefully you have a really good overview of what you can accomplish with 3Delight. But if you haven't checked out 3Delight, I definitely would urge you guys to check it out. It's free for I think like up to 12 multi-threads of processing, which is still like a very fast kind of way of achieving images, as you can kind of see from this tutorial just how quickly things render. And keep in mind that once again, like, we're dealing with a model that's about 1 million polygons. We have displacement, we have multiple materials, and all of the textures are 4K. So, it's a very impressive render engine, and it just keeps getting better and better. All right, I think I've rambled on long enough. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.